All right, we'll call to order Safety and Public Works Committee meeting, City of Brainerd. It is 6:45 PM in council chambers, November 6th, 2023. We have 11 items on the agenda, and I'd like to add a 12th item, and that is the Legion's Community Thanksgiving event. And we'll just add that as number 12. First three are final payouts, or requests for. First of which is a final pay request for improvement 2206, Harrison Safe Routes to School. And Public Works Director Jesse Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll try and be quick with these. So attached is the final pay request for the Safe Routes project. The total costs were $491,333.48, which is under the grant amount of $500,000. So staff is recommending approval of the final pay request in the amount of $4,913.33.
Excellent. Any questions?
Approve that.
Second.
All right, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 2, we have a final pay request for improvement 23-01, 2023 chip sealing project. Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the pay request for the chip sealing project that went on College Drive and South 4th. Total amount was $135,046.65, which is 9.1% underneath the budget of $150. Staff is recommending approval of the final pay request in the amount of $135,046.65.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Jesse, would you tell me once again what chip sealing is specifically?
So I don't know if you know what P-rock is, kind of that small granule rock. They put down a little bit of a layer of tack oil,
Yep.
spread that on the roadway, and then pack that into the road. It's essentially a surface treatment to preserve the structure of the treatment below. Kind of keeps that flexibility for a few years.
Any reason for the word chip in there? Chip sealing? What?
They're like chip rocks is really
Chip
what
granite or whatever
yeah.
it is.
Oh, okay.
Granite chips.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 3 is a final pay request for improvement 23-03 large patch project. Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Final pay request for the large patching project. The project totaled $49,023, which is 2% below the $50,000 budget. So staff is recommending approval of the final pay request in the amount of $49,023.
Excellent.
And how many, can you identify the areas that was done? Or is it not available right now?
I don't have it right in front of me,
Okay,
but it
that's
was a handful of different places.
That
I know
was-
for sure Quince was one of them. I can't remember all the rest of
There's
them. Right off the-
several areas.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any more discussion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 4, we have a change order number 1 and partial payment number 1 to the Lum Park SPRA Road Project. Mr. Dean, if you want to unpack that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's attached is the change order number 1 and partial payment for the Lum Park Road project. The change order reflects a correction to sidewalk thickness for pedestrian ramps, which amounts to an additional $3,077.52. The partial payment request has a total amount of $262,973.11, which is 7.5% over the contract amount. We had some quantity overruns that were needed for construction that resulted in the higher amount. Staff is recommending approval of change order 1 and authorizing the total revised contract amount of $262,973.11.
All right. I did have some questions about the overages that are mentioned in here. There was some extra bituminous, some curb work, and some fill. Basically, that's what it came down to.
Mostly, I mean, there's a couple small dollars here and there, but that was the big nuggets of it.
Okay. Did we do a change order for those, or was that?
No, those are just generally quantity changes, really to get the thing constructed. The extra curb that was added to it wasn't really part of the project, but after one of the rain events, after they had reclaimed it, they noticed that there was a drainage issue. So we made the decision to add another 70 feet of curb replacement to address that drainage so that there wouldn't be a pond on the roadway. It's kind of by that booster station. It was a little bit of a settlement there.
Okay,
But generally, the rest of it was kind of part of the normal construction project.
right.
Just
So
some extra.
I was just wondering because we did a change order for the difference for a 4-inch to 6-inch ADA accessible ramp. Is that just because it was such a specific thing, we had to do a change order to change the record of that, or?
Widseth recommended it because there was quite a bit of difference between the two quantities. Obviously, you're talking about a little bit of a scope change, so they wanted to reflect that through a change order.
Got it. Okay, I was just curious.
What, that would just be like, because there's 50% more concrete based on from 4 to 6 inches, it's not gonna reflect that in the cost, is it? A 50% higher for that concrete, for the ramp?
So the 3,000 is the balance between the two. Obviously, the 6-inch concrete cost, I think it was 14,000, and the 4-inch that we saved on because we didn't need to use that 4-inch was about 11. So you balance the two out, and it was about an additional 3,000.
Okay. Being that you're having 50% more concrete, it isn't gonna cost 50% more for that project, which is
Right.
from 11 to 14.
Correct.
But not, yeah, okay.
Right.
Thank
And
you.
we had a bid price for both
Yep.
prior to anyway.
Okay.
Okay,
I'd move to approve.
Second.
got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 5, we have a parking change request for South 8th and South 9th Streets by the old Washington School. Mr. Dean, if you want to explain that one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The parking on the blocks of South 8th and 9th adjacent to the Washington Education Center, specifically between Pine and Oak, is currently restricted during school days and hours. With the school district no longer using the facility as a school, they've requested that we remove the restriction. Staff is recommending that the parking restrictions be removed on South 8th and 9th between Pine and Oak.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Jeff.
I don't know, I think there's a graph or a map in there, but is the parking restriction currently just on the side of the street that the school is on both the two streets? Or
That is correct.
Okay,
Yep, just along the curb.
Right.
I don't know if that was because of an old bus route, or I have no idea why they used to have that, or why we used to have it, but I don't see this as any issue removing the restriction.
no, I don't either, I just was wondering if it was on the side of the street that the residents live on, but it's not, it wasn't, so.
Actually, in looking at it, there's, on the west side, there's a big asphalt area there.
Yeah,
And if we needed to increase parking at some point for the administrative building, whether it's for visitors for school board meetings or anything, you could easily add diagonal parking at some point whenever we redid the road. We could talk about it then, but just a thought.
I'd move to approve the, removing the parking restrictions on both of those two streets.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
One quick question on that, is there a need for a handicap spot along the curb there on either side? Is that something-
I don't think we need one. There's generally some accessible ramps towards the north and south.
South has the elevator, I believe, right? They just installed.
I'm not sure where the elevator is located
It's
in
on
that
the
building.
south, but would that be up to the school?
If they
board
wanted to
request
request
it?
one, I think we could easily accommodate
Okay.
one.
Okay. All right, move on to number 6. We have, this is a tabled item with the Lowell Safe Routes grant. Do we need a motion to untable now, or is that at the council level, or how do we do that?
I think
Go
we'll
into it?
just reintroduce it, I believe.
All right, excellent. So this is the authorization for the application for Lowell Safe Routes to School grant. And Jesse, if you want to go ahead and explain any changes you made here.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm just bringing this item back as council requested. We're requesting authorization to apply for the Safe Routes to School grant for pedestrian crossing improvements adjacent to Lowell Elementary. Included in the item are a few high-level estimates that we added to this item. We put together a few options for the council to consider. Staff is recommending applying for the larger scope of option 3, which includes the enhanced signage, curb bump outs, and a median if feasible. At this time, staff is requesting authorization to apply for the grant and direction from the council on a scope of work option.
Okay. You guys have any questions about?
If I'm not mistaken, you said that when you apply, whatever you put in that scope is going to be, if they fund it, they're gonna require that. We can't pull back our design once we submit the grant.
They generally like to see those things installed, but if we find out through the engineering that it's not feasible to install a certain something, we can make the argument that we couldn't put it in as part of the project. So, for instance, like the median, if we find we don't have the sufficient roadway width, that would be something that we said we're just not able to feasibly include, although we wish we could have as part of the grant application.
So this engineering aspect of this whole grant is kind of a phase. It's not really setting anything in stone by applying for the grant. There's
No.
some flexibility there.
Correct. If you were to say we want to put enhanced signage in there and you didn't put any of the enhanced signage in there, they'd probably raise a question about that because that's a kind of a key feature of the improvements that we're doing and proposing here. So there's some flexibility in some spots and there's a little bit less in others. It depends on what the key focuses of the improvements would be.
Okay. And there's a study that was done, Safe Routes to Schools study that was done, a few years back. I think number 2 was what they ended up with. I think you have that written on here. But I think as long as it's not a deal breaker that if the median doesn't work, then we pull it off there, then I say we apply for the higher amount.
That's what's being recommended.
That is what's being recommended, yep, number 3.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
If I can just highlight one other piece, it is a lot easier for us to start high and then de-scope something versus not applying for the median and decide that we want one and have to come back and ask for more. It's a little bit more difficult. There may not be available funding too if they divvy up that funds. So that's the other part of that recommendation is kind of to start with the higher option.
Okay.
Has our street crew doing plow work in the winter, they've never had to plow these bump outs. That's always been the downtown. It's the only place they've been is in downtown currently, right? Up until this year, we have them in North Brainerd.
We have some over at some of the other schools that we did safe routes. I believe Garfield has bump outs now.
That's right.
Yep.
So we've made it work elsewhere too.
They're doing okay. I mean,
They're not taking out curbs.
No,
Every other
they
time
are
it snows.
they are not. They've bumped a few. I've heard of that, and they find out real quick where those curbs are. But no, they generally make it work.
and then shoveling, that's up to the property owner who lives adjacent to that bump out?
That is correct.
Okay,
Unless it's on the school side.
right.
Well, then it's still up to the property owner, it just happens to be the school.
Correct. Yeah. They pay taxes to the school. Maybe they could make a deal. Have them come sweep.
There you go.
But I think if we're gonna pick one and start this process, I think we go number 3, like we have recommended.
I will move that we move forward with option 3 as recommended.
Well, I'll second, even though I'm really hesitant on these bump outs. I know they're safe, make it safer, but anyway, that's my second.
Okay, we have a motion and a kind of a second.
I will speak in favor of the bump outs. I think that it is anything that narrows that street and slows down traffic will be of benefit to the entire neighborhood. And I would love for it to slow down traffic.
I agree. I can see how if we had them everywhere, they would become more of a problem with our plowing, but
Yeah.
if we have them in specific spots next to our parks and schools where we know we're gonna have a lot of pedestrian traffic, then I think
And-
it's warranted,
And H Street is so big. It's so wide.
almost too wide.
Yeah, no, it is too wide. I'm gonna it's not almost, it is too wide.
Any issues of injury over there by traffic and people with pedestrians? I don't think there has been, but
No, that's a good thing.
yeah, I know, that's a good thing, so.
All right, any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor? Aye. Against, same sign? Silence, okay. All right, motion passes. We'll go on to item number 7.
I'm not always contrary.
Oh, I know. Just usually.
Every now and
Next is a Braun Intertech agreement for the downtown cable load testing. This has to do with our new shipment of Christmas decorations. Mr. Dean, if you want to go ahead and talk about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So attached to the item is a proposal from Braun Intertech to perform load testing on the cables downtown that hold the holiday decorations. With ordering the new decorations, BP requested that the testing be performed to ensure safe operation and minimizing the risk of damage to the buildings. Staff can answer any additional questions the committee has, but recommends approval of the proposal to perform the load testing.
Where are we at as far as hearing from the business or building owners?
I've heard from back about half.
Okay.
There's a couple I have to still reach out to. I know that the Hensels have been a little bit more difficult to reach, and with their building for sale, it might be very difficult to reach them on that.
Okay. And if we haven't,
We might still do the load testing to ensure that those cables are still safe.
so we're not planning on putting new cables up other than the two,
That is correct.
so they would just be the same agreement from before?
Which there
didn't
hasn't
have.
really have.
Okay.
It was more of a handshake thing.
It was just okay. Got it. When do these usually go up? Right before Thanksgiving?
Our plan is the week of Thanksgiving.
Okay. Okay. You guys have any questions or motions?
So, yeah, I got a question. So we put the decorations up and then we check the load. And so if it's, isn't that kind of cart before the horse?
They factor that in when they do the load testing. So they load the cables to 1.5 times the weight. If the weight is already on there, they'll only load an extra half of the weight to accommodate for that.
I think one other thing that you pointed out to me when we met last week, Jesse, is that these new decorations actually weigh less than the
Quite a
old
bit less.
decorations, correct?
Yeah, quite a
So-
bit less.
There's really not a whole lot of worry. It's just getting the agreement in place and adding a couple new ones. I think that's,
So even though they're less weight, do they, of course, do they have more a surface for wind to catch or anything like that to make the,
I don't know what they look like.
No, they're a lot less. So
Okay.
the swags just kind of hug the cable. The old ones actually had 3 wreaths, and they were pretty hefty wreaths that had an iron frame with them. And each of those 3 was weighed about the same as the one swag that we have currently. So quite a bit lighter now and a little bit less for the wind to catch.
Is that a proper term for Christmas decorations, swags?
That's what
Or is
I've
that-
always been told. So
That's on the order form?
I don't remember what's on that order form now that I think about it.
I'm gonna start calling my Christmas tree a Christmas swag.
swag display?
Yes.
Okay, I move to approve. Ron,
Seconds.
yeah.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 8, this is a termination of the Crow Wing County fuel sales agreement. And Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item was discussed at the recent TAC meeting with the TAC recommending termination of the Crow Wing County fuel sales agreement. Staff would propose that the transit program utilize WEX fuel cards, similar to the rest of the city's fleet. Staff is recommending termination of the fuel sales agreement and moving to WEX cards for fueling.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Makes sense to me. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Number 9, we have a draft transit cooperative agreement with Crow Wing County and Baxter. Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the changes that occurred this summer and the fall in the transit program, staff has spent some time revising the cooperative agreements with Crow Wing County and the city of Baxter. Attached are the draft agreements prepared by staff and also reviewed by the city attorney. TAC also discussed these agreements and recommended approval at their meeting. Staff can answer any questions the council has on these, but is recommending approval of the agreements as presented.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Jesse also did include in effect that we were asking that this get reviewed after about a year to make sure the formula that was used is, current, or if things change with ridership and fuel usage and all that, we want to make sure that the percentages still play out as they currently are formulated, so
Right.
just,
So was it the TAC committee's recommendation that we go 3 years based on the fact that it's easier to sign a contract with someone for 3 years, or we might get more applicants for a contract if we do go 3 years rather than signing a 1-year agreement and then looking at it because we have to?
maybe Jesse would be better to speak to that. My thought was that it plays a role in the third-party contract as a 3-year term, like I think you just indicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then each party can back out of this, right, Jesse?
That is correct. There is a termination clause in these that under, I believe it's 30 days notice, or is it 90 days? I have to double check. That you're able to terminate, 90 days written, that you're able to terminate these agreements. The intention behind the 3-year term of this agreement is we want it to coincide with the term of the third-party contract as well. This provides us an avenue to, every time the solicitation comes through, evaluate each of our cooperative partners and what the new contract would be with whoever our third-party contractor would be, and let them know if there's any changes, what that would be recommended with, and if they wanted to essentially change the terms of the agreement, more like cancel, they would be able to. So that's kind of why the timing we selected with this. Again, the other part of this is the fact that we have a sunset clause in here of a 3-year term. Prior to that, we did not have that. It was just kind of in perpetuity until changed. So we wanted to make sure that we were relooking at this, as well as the local shares between the cooperative partners at least every 3 years.
Okay. And then, just to make sure everybody's aware, it's a big change for our percentage of cost. We lost, was it Pine River?
Correct.
And we're just estimating where we're gonna be at. So it could be better, could be worse. But based on cutting some of those routes, that percentage should be slightly less as far as an overall cost. The cost should be somewhat less. We just have a higher percentage.
Yep.
Does that even out? Does it come close to evening out in what you guys have come up with as far as your estimates?
For expenses,
Yeah.
overall expenses should go down because we don't have the trip to Pine River, as well as a lot less trips around the county.
Right. I'm talking about for Brainerd's cost, because that percentage went up, but the overall cost is coming down. Does it somewhat end up in the same ballpark, or are we still estimating that we're gonna have a rise in costs or a drop?
The intention is that most of the expenses should be pretty close to what we haven't had before, with the exception of everybody having to share in some of the Pine River loss. So no, some of the expenses to Pine River were only borne by Pine River, for like example, fuel. That should have been their expense, but they also shared in the expense of some of the flat fees, like administrative costs for like our staff person. So we have to pull that 7% and divide that out. So Brainerd is picking up an extra piece of that. But generally, most of the expenses should be about the same of what we had before.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, because, for instance, a bus purchase, which is coming up here, the local share is 13,000. We're paying 65% of that this go-round, which is roughly $9,000. If it was the other local share, we had, what, 47 or 48%?
Yeah, I remember it being closer to 50.
Yeah, it's just under 50, so we're paying, we're paying an additional 15+% on our local share. So unless the overall cost comes down, which, for instance, the capital purchase like a bus, we're gonna be paying more as the city of Brainerd providing transit. And that's the nature of this formula. That's why I want to have it reviewed, to see that things are, I guess, equaling out. There's more than just fuel sales too. I think it's ridership, how many buses are used where and when. That's why routes, county shares goes down, because they're not providing as much service, which makes sense. But that should lower the overall cost, which then lowers our local share. So would that be a fair way to put it, you think, Jesse?
Correct. That was kind of the difficult part of this, is because you lose Pine River and you significantly drop the county, where does those expenses get reallocated to? So you're correct. Some of those flat costs, like a capital bus purchase, our percentage does go up in that purchase. Like I said, same thing with like Crystal. If taking her flat salary over the year, we are picking up more of that salary now than before.
Okay. Any more discussion?
Did we motion on this already? We did?
Nope.
No.
Okay, I move to approve this.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And next is our 2024 capital bus purchase, as we just spoke a little about. And Mr. Dean, if you want to go ahead and tell us about that one. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So staff is requesting authorization to apply for the MnDOT 2024 capital bus vehicle replacement grant to replace one of our transit buses. If approved, the bus ordered would likely not be received until 2026, with the local share being due at the time of delivery. TAC recommended approval of the capital bus purchase.
All right. And it says financial impact 13,000, but that is overall. And based on what we just heard, our cost of that would be 65% of the 13,
The Brainerd share, yes, correct.
unless that changes by 2026.
Correct.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, we have a transit operating policy update. Looks like there's a couple of different small changes on here, but Mr. Dean, if you want to tell us about those, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So MnDOT has completed their audit of the transit program. There are a couple policy revisions based on findings from the audit that staff is recommending approval. They're related to the advanced notice policy and the subscription trips policy. Staff is recommending approval of the changes as described in the agenda request and can answer any questions.
Seemed pretty straightforward to me. Did they find anything else in the audit?
They had a handful of different recommendations. Once we get the final audit report, that starts a clock of time that we need to make revisions and adjustments. So we'll be continuing to work on this process as we move along.
All right.
Yeah, the question I have about some of the suggestions, I like to call them suggestions because this is our service, not this auditors or the auditing firm. So some of them we might have mandates, others are kind of suggestions or recommendations. So these are good ones. I'd move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And then we do have our additional item. We have the Legion Community Thanksgiving. And Jesse, I think you're prepared with that one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yep, so staff received the street closure application for the Legion's Community Thanksgiving event that occurs on Front Street. They request closure of Front Street from 6th to 8th Streets on Thanksgiving from 6 a.m. till 1 p.m. They bring traffic in one way from 6th as well as 7th and then exit out onto 8th Street to distribute Thanksgiving meals. This is the same closure that occurred last Thanksgiving, and there were no issues with that closure. Staff is recommending approval of the street closure application under the same condition as last year, that they provide a certificate of insurance to City Hall prior to the event.
Excellent. Yeah, they serve a lot of meals. Don't know if I think they're free, I believe.
Yep.
I don't remember what the number is, but I'm sure Mr. Stunek can
Last
tell us.
year I had 3 ordered and I ate them all myself.
Just adding to that eternal flame.
Oh, boy.
Okay,
Charlie's gonna
Motion?
put it to use. Move to approve.
Second.
got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. We can adjourn to the council meeting.
What time is it?